The Blast from Our Past Network.
Hey everyone, co-host Corey here. I just wanted to take a quick second and say thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Without you, Podcasting After Dark would not be possible. If you would like to help the show grow, please consider signing up at patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. You can also support the show by purchasing one of our awesome t-shirt designs on our merch store at podcastingafterdark.com, or by picking up a copy of 7 Winters Alone by David Irons on paperback, hardback, or Kindle. Just search for 7 Winters Alone on Amazon or click on the link in the show notes. A free way to help out is to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Those reviews are huge for us and really helps get the show in front of new listeners. Again, thank you all so much for the love and support you've given us over these past few years. It really means the world to us.
Welcome to our Patreon exclusive interview series for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Tonight's interview is with the star of Fright Night, Project X, and House 2. Actor, writer, producer, Jonathan Stark. Jonathan Stark, thank you so much for being on Podcasting After Dark.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I'm always happy to, talk to people who are fans of my work or the films I've done or television or whatever I've done. I don't really act much anymore. I'm more do writing these days, but I love to talk. So this is a good thing.
Well, that's perfect for our podcast because that's all we do is talk. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's not just your acting. It's also your writing that we are big fans of, and the television content that you've provided over the past decades, which is kind of crazy to think about in this day and age.
I know. I'm still writing too. I got some scripts in the pipeline, and there's not too much happening right these days and here in town and in the business, but I'm writing some stuff and it's getting out there. So we'll see.
Oh, it's great. How are you doing first and foremost with the current state of everything going on?
Well, I'm doing basically the same as everybody else, going out of my mind, looking at my wife and going, who are you? And what day is it? And, how long is this going to last?
Yeah.
So pretty much the same as everybody else. I mean, usually the only real outing I get and see people other than my family live is I go over to a friend's house. I got an actor named Peter Onorati. I don't know if you know who Peter is, but he's
okay.
He's a terrific actor. He was on This Is Us and all these great shows. He and his family, I've known them for years, and we go over there every Friday and sit around in a circle with our face masks on and 6 feet apart and have martinis, and we bring our own snacks. So that's kind of that's my only outing.
It's kind of this is revolutionized the importance of getting together with friends and family, at least. Well, maybe more friends. I don't know about family, but
it has. But I am also I'm doing some Zoom, things where I see people, and I'm teaching a script development class through the Groundlings, which is my old alma mater. I've been an improviser, still am an improviser have been for a long time, and the Groundlings is kind of hurting for money because they can't open their theater. So they've asked if any of the alumni or present people in the company, can do things where they could teach classes online, and the money then would go to the Groundlings to help them keep going. So my former writing partner, Tracy Newman, and I are teaching a script development class through the Groundlings, and that's a lot of fun. But
that's great.
But Zooming I've there's a couple of Zoom improv shows on line, and I've watched one or two of them, and they're fine. I mean, they're not bad, but it's not the same. It's not the same as watching somebody live, and I miss that.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a 5-year-old son, or 6-year-old. He's 6 now. Year-old son at home, and I tell him that this time is going to be 20 years from now. This will be the thing he looks back and says, well, you remember when this was our big moment,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's
unreal.
I said my kids are 23 and 26. Yeah, 23 and 26 respectively. And I keep telling them the same thing. I said, this is going to be a story. My daughter got married about a month and a half ago, and she had to stand outside, and the official was standing behind a piece of plexiglass and had to hand them all their marriage certificate and everything with one of those extender things,
Oh gosh,
and they had to wear masks. So I said, this is gonna, it's gonna make a good story.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell their kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I years ago I ran a summer camp, and my campers were attacked by hornets, and it's a long, convoluted story. But I told the kids after it was all said and done, and there were tears, I said, you know what, guys, this is going to be something you're never going to forget. And so now one of the kids, who's now 18 years old, he goes, you remember that time that the hornets attacked us? I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, that was so cool. I said,
I taught summer camp once.
Did you really?
For a summer, yeah. I was up in outside of Rhinebeck, New York, and I had just kind of, I was kind of like hanging out in 1976, not knowing what I wanted to do, and I just got this job, and so I went up there and taught for the summer, but I was not counselor material, because I would like hang out with the kids in the woods and get high. So they were just they were not happy with me, and they kind of said, well, you can't, we were all in a cabin with the kids, and they said, well, you can't be a counselor anymore, but we still need you to teach photography, which is what I did. And I said, well, so what are you going to do? They said, well, you just won't have a group anymore. So when the kids would have to get up at 6 o'clock, I sleep until 9.
You could.
According to every movie I watched in the 80s, actually, it sounds like you were counselor material.
I think so. That's probably true. I got a horrible. The guy that ran that camp was just a jerk. Though, and he gave me a horrible rating. He said and I was terrified that whatever job I was going to have, it would just follow me forever. But that's what you think when you're a kid.
Oh, of course. So did that propel you into getting involved in acting or performance?
What really kind of propelled me to get involved in acting was when I was at college. I went to a private or a liberal arts school in Erie, Pennsylvania, where I'm from, Mercyhurst College, which I guess is now Mercyhurst University, and I was in the education department. I was getting my degree in art education, and I had some friends that were in the theater department, and I took theater I did theater when I was younger, when I was in junior high school and stuff. We had a summer theater program, and I loved it. I loved it, but I never thought it was something. I mean, being from Erie, you don't think it's something that you're going to do as a career.
Yeah.
So I started hanging out with the theater people, and because education people were relatively boring, so I hung out with the theater people and became friends with a lot of them. My college roommate was a guy named Michael Patrick King, who's a writer and producer. He did Sex and the City and The Comeback and all those shows, and I just loved the theater, and the rap parties, and they were so crazy and kooky and fun and everything, and I really liked it. But again, I got my degree and was kind of hanging out, just going to bars and thinking like, oh God, I guess I got to be a substitute teacher and everything. And a friend of mine said, hey, they're doing 1776 at the college, and somebody just dropped out. You should go. You want to go talk to the director? And I said, yeah, I'm not doing anything else. So I did, and got the part. And wasn't a big part. I don't remember what part it was, but once I went back out on the stage and the audience was there, and I thought, this is I love this, and I thought, well, I don't want to stay in Erie. It's just not. There's no place to go. There's nothing to do. So I thought maybe this is for me. So I went to this summer camp, and I met this girl there, and she said, I'm driving out to San Francisco, and do you want to go? And I said, sure. So, I packed up all my stuff. We got, put it all. I had everything that I owned I could fit in a car, which is hard to believe now, but I did, and we drove out to San Francisco, and we lived there for 2 years, and I bussed tables, and I took an acting workshop for 2 years, and then I said, I think I really do want to pursue this, so I figured it was best to come down to LA and not stay in San Francisco.
Yeah, something tells me San Francisco is not the hotbed of acting at the time, but to come all the way from Pennsylvania all the way out to San Francisco with what you just had in a car. What kind of car are we talking about? Is it a 70s Volvo or?
No, it was like I think it was a brand new Honda Accord, but I don't know if you remember, I guess they still have them called drive-away cars, where somebody wants their car delivered basically, and they don't want to pay to have, somebody, a transportation service. So what they do is you get in the car there, you drive it out, and you pay for the gas. So basically it costs them nothing. And you've got a car that takes you to where you want to go. And that's what we did. So when we were in San Francisco, we didn't have any car or anything.
Well, that was the plot of The Hitcher, the C. Thomas Howell, Rutger Hauer movie.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Where he had to drive cross country, and that's when he picks up a hitchhiker. But that's a whole other story. So.
Well, I also hitchhiked across country twice, which was one of the highlights of my life. When I was living in San Francisco, I went always would go back east for Christmas because my mother lived in Virginia Beach, so I would go visit her. But first, I'd always go to New York, because so many of my friends from college, those acting people that I talked about earlier, they moved to New York. I was one of the only people who went west, and so they were all there. So I'd hang out for about a week, and we just hang out. We didn't have much money. I mean, I didn't even have enough money to get to New York. I had to. It would cost me like $50 to get from San Francisco to New York. And then when I get to New York, my friend Michael King, who was living there, he was waiting tables at the time. And as soon as I get in New York, I drop my stuff off at his house. I go to where he was working, and I was starving, so he'd give me just all this food, and then he'd charge me only for coffee. So we called it the magic menu. And that was always, and then we just hang out with, I'm still a lot of friends with a lot of those people that I hung out with then.
Oh, that's great.
Do you still make your way out to the East Coast and everything? I grew up in Maryland and Virginia, so I've been to Virginia Beach and all that kind of stuff. I still have family in Maryland.
Yeah, well, my mom's not around anymore, but my sister lives in Erie still, so I always go back to see her every year. And then this year I was supposed to have a high school reunion, but that didn't happen. So and now with everything, with the I don't want to go on an airplane right now, so I'm just here in LA until things clear up a little bit.
My wife and I are supposed to go to back to Maryland for a crab feast in August, for my mom's birthday. But
nice.
I think we're leaning on it's not going to happen. But I was, it was going to be my wife's first crab feast because she was born and raised in LA, so she was all excited to try it. But next year, there's always next year.
That's one of the great things. My mother was the thing she loved more than anything was I don't think I've ever had it, but she crab soup.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And she loved that, That is true. In Maryland, Delaware, that whole area, the best crabs anywhere.
Yeah, that's the one of the things I really miss on being on the West Coast now is I really miss the Maryland blue crabs.
Yeah, the seafood here kind of sucks compared to the
Oh,
East
totally.
Coast. You
Yeah,
know,
Yeah.
totally. Agreed. It's not the same.
yeah.
And how long have you been in LA now? Have you been here
Oh
since
my God,
since the 80s?
I got here in 1970. I think the latter half of 77 or early 78. I don't remember exactly.
Oh my
It's that
gosh.
long ago. Um, and I've been here ever since. I've done, you know, I waited tables. I did a lot of, for a long time, I did a lot of ADR work or background looping.
Okay.
Um, do you know what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. We just
Yeah.
I have another podcast where we interview Matt Adler, and he kind of transitioned from screen acting to ADR work. So
Yeah. Yeah. I did the opposite. I went from, well, I was acting and then supplemented my income with ADR work, but I did so many movies. Like I did the Indiana Jones movies. I did Field of Dreams. I did Rain Man. I did all those movies, and it was a great source
nice.
of income.
Yeah,
But
totally.
but during that time is when I got Tracy and I got our first writing job, so we had to, obviously bail on the ADR.
Was she doing ADR as well?
No, well, yes, actually, she was doing ADR. She was doing it too, but I actually knew her from the Groundlings because she was one of the original members of the Groundlings organization, and
Oh, wow.
I kind of just met her through that, and a lot of other people that were involved with the Groundlings too, like Lynn Stewart and Paul Rubens and Phil Hartman, and so many people that were just you know brilliant people, and people that I would watch as I was learning improv, because I think the best thing that anybody can do when they're learning something is go watch people who are better than them or more experienced than them, and I
Totally.
just did that all the time.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice, and you were amongst what many would consider just um, iconic actors from that era for sure.
Hmm. How old do you have to be before you become iconic? I'm not exactly
I
sure, but
I think now
I mean, I'd
the
say
80s
Billy
have
Cole is iconic, the character.
yeah,
well,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Speaking of that, so on our show we break down movies kind of like scene by scene, and then Corey and I pick movies every now and we like switch off picking movies, and I chose Fright Night to break down, and Corey hadn't seen it in a while. I
Hmm.
hadn't seen it in a while, but it is one of my favorite movies of all time, um, for many reasons. And we had Stephen Jeffries on our show, and actually he's kind of become a good friend, and
He's a great guy.
he's wonderful person. And then we just recently had Tom Holland on the show,
Hmm.
and reminisced about this movie and all the others that he's done. But
Billy Ragsdale
Corey,
does the best impression of Tom Holland ever. I mean,
oh,
I hope you can get Billy on sometime, because it's hysterical.
well, I think it's kind of going down that route because 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 Corey said to me, he's like, who I would really love to have on the show? I said, who? He's like, Jonathan Stark, because I really want a Billy Cole in my. What did you say, Corey? What was the
Well,
exact
yeah.
quote? The
So
direct
when
quote?
I was watching the movie, I'd seen it when I was younger, but I hadn't seen it in a while, so I was really digging into it. And truth be told, my favorite character in the movie was Billy Cole, and
Wow.
I was just like, dude, he's like he. It's like Billy Cole's supposed to be a bad guy. Jerry Danger's quote unquote supposed to be the bad guy, but I'm watching the movie and I'm like, those aren't the bad guys. Those are the good guys. Like that's the kind of friend you want. You want a Billy Cole in your life. So I first off, we were trying to figure out what Billy Cole was, and Tom Holland explained to us that he's like half vampire, half maid. But my other question to Tom Holland was, where do I get my own Billy Cole?
It's funny. I do the horror cons. I haven't done one for a while, but I do the horror cons, and people always come up to the table and go, "Oh my God, it's you!" And I want to say, no, I'm not that guy. You're thinking I'm that guy. I'm not that guy. And one woman came up with her husband and her kid one time. She goes, seriously, I want to marry Billy Cole. And there was this really awkward moment. And I just said,
Yeah.
but I'm not him and I'm married, right? I mean, we all laughed about it, but it was like, that's, wow, that's a little weird.
Well, it's
And who would
funny.
want to marry that guy?
He's a half vampire, but he's so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
anybody that can get Roddy McDowell to feel uncomfortable and kind of give him an awkward handshake is okay. Is okay in my book.
Roddy, we always, every time, one of the true joys of my life is doing a horror convention when the whole cast is there.
Yeah.
Because they are just the most wonderful people and so warm and just so funny. I mean, we just crack each other up the whole time, and that happened on the set too, because you see, I haven't watched it in forever, but you see these scenes where everybody's so serious, and I always remember that right before this, Tom said action, we were laughing so hard, we were cracking each other up.
That's
And
awesome.
Tom was just like, all right, you guys, come on, all right, all right, action. And we just put on our scary faces and proceed. But to me, it was just, all I remember was just laughing the whole time.
Hey, kid. What are you doing? Nothing. Oh, yeah? Would just make sure that it stays that way. Kid.
Yeah, I was going to say that energy I think comes through because Zach and I, at this point, we watch a lot of these movies, and some are good, some are bad, and that's subjective. But a lot of times you can actually like feel the love, even if the movie is quote unquote bad. You can feel the love that was behind it, and the energy that was behind it, and Fright Night is not a bad movie. We love Fright Night, but you can also feel like the energy in that movie. You can feel the love behind the characters, and you can feel the love with the actors and whatnot. At least that's how I perceived it, and I think that was one of the joys that comes through on the screen in that movie.
I think you're absolutely right. At least from my perspective, it was. I mean, I'm sure there were problems on the set. There always are on every set, but I was not privy to them, and I would just come on and, well, it was my first real acting job too. But most of the time, I was terrified that I was sucking, and I
Oh,
would
really?
I would I would yeah I would the script supervisor, Mavis Gerard, who is a wonderful woman. And, the person you always want to ask if you're sucking or not is the script supervisor, because she or he are standing there watching your performance over and over and over. And I would do a scene. I go, Mavis, was that okay? I mean, I don't know. And she go, no. She go, no, yeah, it's wonderful. You go, absolutely right. Absolutely perfect. And I was like, okay, she's either bullshitting me or she really likes it. But I was never sure, because I mean, Tom is busy with a million other things. I'm not going to go up to Tom, and I'm not going to say to the other actors, "Yeah, James, that good." So, so I just kind of was on my own, and then the film was done, and they had a screening at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and everybody was going to go with me. And I thought, man, if I suck, this is going to be the worst experience of my life. So I said, well, I'm not going. So not only did I not go, but I fled to New York to hang out with my friends there. And apparently the screening went well, and it was well received. And I thought, well, damn, but that's okay. I'm in New York. And my friend said, when it opened, my friend said, okay, we're going to go see it on 42nd Street. And if you've ever seen a movie on 42nd Street, especially back in the mid 80s, yeah, it was the best place to watch a movie, because people were yelling at the screen and basically saying, look out, look out, look out, here comes Billy, and and look out, Jerry's there. I mean, it was fantastic. I was so glad I saw it there and not at the Academy with a bunch of Hollywood stiffs.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because in LA, I'm sure you're familiar with the New Beverly, and
oh yeah,
they did a screening, actually also at the at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood. They did a screening of Fright Night. Fright Night has been screened all over the place,
Oh yeah.
countless times. And it is seeing it with an audience that appreciates it for what it is and has a sense of humor and is not worried about who they, how good they look or
Right.
whether, or money or whatnot. That's the audience you need to see this movie with.
Yeah, I know there was one not too long ago, 3 or 4 months ago, but it was something like 2 in the afternoon, and I couldn't see it. I know they did a midnight one, and my friend Tab Murphy, who's a screenwriter, uh, uh, and by the way, Tab is just recently they're going to shoot his adaptation of The Changeling. They're reshooting
Oh,
that,
fantastic.
and they're
Oh, I
doing that
love
in
that
Ireland.
movie.
And it's a terrific script. So and much, in my opinion, much scarier and than the original.
The
Um,
you're talking about the George C. Scott.
George C. Scott one, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Oh, cool.
he rewrote he rewrote it, and they're shooting that soon whenever things cool down here. But anyway, I know there was he told me, he said, oh, there's a midnight screening, we should go. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I just never got to do it. But if they did that again, I would. If they did another midnight screen, I would definitely go, and I would go and talk. I have no problem with that.
Well, Corey and I have mentioned quite a few times in the past how, because our podcast has gained quite a bit of popularity since its inception, which is about a year ago, and we've talked about potentially doing screenings with guests in the future, and in tow with our show. So there could be a Fright Night screening down the road that we'll definitely keep you up to date on.
Well, let's do it. I'd love to do it. Tom, you can't. Tom's always happy to talk about himself. So,
yeah, clearly.
but nobody else lives here in LA. I mean, they're all gone now. But you never know who might be in town. But yeah, I mean, and it really should be a midnight screening because it's for Fright Night. That just seems like the appropriate time.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah,
well,
that's definitely perfect.
I saw you were at a Fangoria convention years ago. I want to say 1994, maybe.
Wow.
Down in Burbank.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm.
it was a reunion. Because Tony Timpone is a friend of mine and friend of the show. And I brought up that convention specifically because I said it was one of the greatest convention memories that I have as a teenager kid or whatever, just because you guys truly enjoy being in each other's company and everybody was there. I think Roddy had passed away at that point, unfortunately, but the entire cast was there along with Tom. And again, yeah, what you're saying about that energy on screen, just it was infectious and clearly you guys have fond memories over all of that movie, and you did not suck. You did not suck.
Well, no, I will agree with you at this point, but it's true. I didn't work with Steven that much, and Steven also was, Steven was standoffish because he was doing this character, and he's a brilliant actor. I just think he's terrific.
Yeah, he
and
is.
So I didn't really have much interaction with him, but everybody else I did, and we just enjoyed working with each other so much. We all look forward to it. We all laughed a lot. And Steve and I actually got to know more at the horror conventions, and now I just love him. He's like the sweetest, nicest guy, and he's been through a lot of tough times in his life, but he's emerged victorious, and he's doing great. And I just so look forward to seeing him along with everybody else. Like I said, I haven't done one in probably 1.5 or 2 years, and I kind of write to everybody and go, "You guys doing them?" And sometimes Chris and Billy and Amanda and Stephen will do them, but I won't be invited, so I don't get to see them too often. And I think Chris did an online one recently, but again, I don't even know what one of those online ones is like. I can't imagine.
Well, you heard it here first. We're inviting you. You're the first one to be invited.
All right.
It's gonna happen. And
good.
I will tell you, yeah, Stephen, it's kind of ridiculous. Stephen loves literature, and he just read War and Peace for the second time.
Oh my God, he's so smart.
That's hardcore.
And I said, I was talking to him the other day on the phone. And I said, "Are you reading that again?" He goes, "Yeah, it's actually more enjoyable the second time around." Okay.
Oh God, he is
Hats off
such
to
an
you.
interesting guy. I just adore him.
Well, and we could talk about Fright Night all day long because it was my movie that I'd fall asleep to at night. It's a movie that actually I'm talking to Brad Fidel next week, who did the
Oh,
soundtrack for it.
yeah.
Just I think it's a flawless modern day classic.
You
But
know,
you,
I have to say that a long time ago, I don't know how long ago, but I did a podcast called Fright Night Minute, I think it's called. I don't know if
okay,
you've heard of it, but they take every minute of the movie and do a half hour or 45 minutes on each minute, and they asked me to do it, and I said, yeah, okay, but I don't even remember most of the movie. How am I going to remember each minute? I honestly won't be able to
wow,
help you with that. He said, okay, well, we'll just interview you. I said, that's fine.
that's that. Speaking of hardcore, that is pretty
That is
hardcore. One,
really hardcore. Yeah. I don't think any of us would know. Yeah, it's true. I don't think any of the cast know more about the movie than almost everybody that comes to the conventions, or you guys or whatever. You know much more about the movie than we do.
this chunk of time for you, like 85 to 87, 88, uh, was a lot of great movies and television as well. And um, you did Project X with Matthew Broderick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hung out with Matthew and Jennifer Grey and who he was dating at the time, and gosh, why am I forgetting her name? The woman that
Oh,
starred with Matthew,
Helen Hunt.
Helen Hunt. Helen.
Helen.
Yeah,
Yep.
we would kind of all hang out together, and they were all wonderful. You know, I've been really lucky. You know, I've worked on some terrific films, but you know, when you work with chimps, that's always a interesting thing because you know we had 3 days of kind of us learning what not to do pretty much because but I remember the guy coming on and the first day goes, all right, just want you to know that you never look the chimp in the eye. You look him in the eye, they think that's a challenge. You're going to rip your arm off and beat you to death with it. I'm like, great, that's fun, this will be great. So but you know they were, especially the chimps that were in that were circus chimps. They were not happy. I mean, obviously they had horrible lives, and they were not happy campers. And I had one. I think there's a scene where I'm walking down the hallway, and one walks by me the other direction. And the trainers, the people that had them in the movie were actually the trainers. And boy, that chimp just jumped toward me, and that trainer just pulled him back. And I was like,
Oh,
oh God, I don't know what he would have done to me.
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Pulled your arm off and beat you with it, probably.
probably. Yeah.
I used to be a teacher, a kindergarten teacher, for over 15 years before I
Ah,
transitioned into voice acting and podcasting. But one of my parents was Brian Robbins, and he was working on the film, I think Dr. Doolittle, perhaps, but he brought the
ah,
monkey to school for the kids
ah,
and to
yeah.
see.
Oh God.
And it was very like it was all good. It worked out fine, but I was really nervous and uncomfortable about it because I thought, what if this thing just like they're very unpredictable, And
Yeah.
so I can imagine you were in that moment. You were probably like, "Oh crap."
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to be nervous about wildlife because they're not bred to be our friends. I mean, they can be nice to us, but I don't think you can ever turn your back on them. Why would you?
No. Well, and I think that movie effectively captured this idea that we should not be putting these things in cages and experimenting on them, and it's Project X is a personal favorite of mine just because I watched it a number of times back in the day and just have a fondness for it.
Well, yeah, I think too. I mean, I know after the fact there was all this stuff about the chimps being, abused. I never saw any of that, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't happening.
True. Yeah. And I'm glad you didn't get your arm ripped off.
Yeah, yeah.
But then going from that, you went into, did you film House 2 after that or around the same time?
Let's see. No, I think I did House 2 after Fright Night. I think I did. I don't know. I'd have to look on IMDb. I don't even remember, but I'm pretty sure I did. I went into House 2 after Fright Night.
We love that movie, by the way.
No, wait a second. I might have done. Oh God, I don't know. I know that I had a serious crew cut for Project X.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
and I know my hair was short for House 2, so I might have gone into House 2 because my hair was so short at that time. So, maybe.
Well, yeah, it's almost like you just pushed it down in.
Yeah.
Last year, audiences everywhere thrilled to a terrifying film about the horrors of home ownership. House. Now, there's an all-new house.
It's like you got some kind of alternate universe in there or something.
With brand new owners.
Charlie. Huh? You got it.
And it's getting weirder.
Look! It's a prehistoric bird!
I've seen enough tragedy and disaster to make you want to upchuck in your shorts.
Two friends inherit a fantastic house.
Charlie, there's a jungle in there.
And a 170-year-old mummy.
Surprise! Who is this? You can call me Gramps.
Now, they're in for more trouble than they ever imagined.
You're gonna kick the door open, run in there blindly, and I'll cover you, okay? Guy with the big gun goes first.
Help me, you idiot!
House 2, the second story.
This place gives me the creeps.
I used to watch that all the time as a kid. I kind of grew up, the latchkey kid scenario. My grandpa would sort of, watch me when my mom was at work. So I kind of like kid grandpa movies, and this one actually is one of those. And so, I'm watching it and I'm like, oh man, I love this movie, but I'm watching it also for you and everything. And again, your performance, it's so much fun. Your character Charlie's just so much fun. And again, it's like, oh man, I want a friend like that, like always down for an adventure.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because a lot of people will look at me, especially at the horror conventions, as the vampire killer or the vampire, the mean, nasty guy, the villain. And it's great to play a villain. It's fun for any actor to play a villain, but I'm closer to Charlie than I am Billy Cole. I'm more of the irreverent kind of guy who's always saying stuff that he probably shouldn't say, and is probably getting friends into trouble. So I think that, to me, it was certainly closer to who I was. And when I haven't watched the thing much. In fact, I hadn't watched it I don't think since it first came out until they had the Blu-ray set. And I watched it. I thought, I was pretty good in that. And I hadn't considered that really, that I was, because it was, it was a movie that, did fine, but it's not considered certainly high art. And you just kind of watch it and you just kind of think about it. You go, well, yeah, I was probably fine in it. But then you watch it and you go, well, everybody was, Ari was terrific in it. And Royal was, brilliant. Royal was just excellent.
Yeah, it's got a great cast and a young Bill Maher at the time too. When
Bill Maher, who was very
John
funny.
Ratzenberger.
Every time I see him in that, there's some lines that just still make me laugh. And I watch his show all the time. I love his show.
Yeah, ditto.
So it was it was a really good experience. And Ethan was a great guy, and I loved Ari, and I had great chemistry, and I loved working with Ari. We enjoyed working with each other very much. In fact, I had lunch with him. I hadn't had lunch with him in a long, seen him in forever. And I think in February or something, we right before this all happened, we had lunch together, and we had some great memories and some good laughs, and we're still buddies. And every once in a while, I have I'm on Facebook, and I'm not on Facebook, eBay, and I have this search thing in that if anything comes up for House 2, I at least see what it is. And there's stuff like Catter Puppies. They made these Catter
Oh,
Puppy,
really?
yeah, things for, for advertising. I guess they'd send them to, I don't know who they'd send them to, theater people or owners or something. I don't know what. And then they had
Wow.
like T-shirts and sweatshirts and all this stuff that I never knew. I never got any of that stuff, but um, yeah. So I always forward whatever it is that's a House 2 thing to Ari, and we always get a good laugh out of that.
Has just such a fun energy to it that you can just
Yeah.
tell people are having fun in that movie.
It is, and again, I wouldn't, I don't know if I'd recommend it to people because I always think people will always think, yeah, it's just a kids movie and stuff, and it is. I mean, it's certainly not nearly as dark as the first House, which is I
no.
love the first House movie.
Yeah.
It's great, and so I don't really go like, yeah, you should watch it, but I say if you have kids, sit down and watch it with your kids and see what you think.
Yeah, I feel like
Well,
that's something that was bigger back then and doesn't really happen as much now. Is like these sort of kind of friendly adventure movies, but also skirt the line of danger, skirt the line of they're sort of there could be bad outcomes here. Whereas now it's just everything's like, okay, nothing ever bad's gonna happen. But back in the 80s, you had like Monster Squad, The Goonies, and House
Yeah.
2. Even though he's not a kid in it, but or Ari isn't, his character isn't a kid, but it has that sort of same vibe to it, which I
Yeah.
feel like is really lacking these days.
I think I think probably. I mean, I'm a huge horror movie fan. I mean, I watch as much as I can. I mean, I don't really particularly. I try and find them for free because I get so pissed off when it's a bad movie and I paid $5 or $6 for it. So I try and wait till it's on Hulu or Netflix or whatever. But right now I'm watching Midsummer, and
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if
okay.
that's fucking nuts, man. I'm
Yeah.
I'm halfway through it, and it's crazy.
Have
I
you seen
mean, it's so.
Hereditary?
I have seen Hereditary. I saw the screening of Hereditary with the director there, Ari. Can't think of his last name, but
Aster, yeah.
yeah, Ari Aster, and uh, yeah, I liked Hereditary a lot, and it's so weird, this movie, that I'm kind of half, three quarters of the way through it, and it's just freaking me out.
Are you a
I,
fan
I, I
more of modern horror, or are you a fan more of the classics, or
I would
what?
say
What?
more. I would say more modern horror. I
Okay.
don't see. Vampire movies don't really scare me at all. I don't really believe it. I just can't get into them. And
Yeah.
uh, so I like movies more about the supernatural. And I'm trying to think of a good one I've seen lately. Oh, I saw Brightburn, which I liked very much.
Oh,
oh yeah, that was fun.
If
I
you
saw
haven't
that in
seen,
theater. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that was terrific. And those are the kind of movies where you just kind of take a chance. And again, it was on Netflix or something like that, and then you go, wow, this is really good. I saw what's the new one with Nick Cage, the one about the meteorite coming down, and
oh yeah.
Oh, Color Out of
Corey?
Space. We
Color Out
reviewed
of
that
Space.
on the show. Yeah, we love that
Yeah,
movie.
that's really good. But then you buy, like I said, you buy one and you watch for, you know, 15 minutes and you go, this sucks. Just wasted my money on this thing because it's horrible. I watched one on Netflix. This was years ago. It was so bad. It was so bad that at the end of the scene, I swear to God, hear the director say cut.
No, no, really?
Really.
No.
Yeah.
Was it a Full Moon Entertainment movie?
I don't know. I don't remember much about it, but it was.
Oh my gosh.
I was so mad about that.
Well, it seems like Corey and I, because we love horror so much and cult and sci-fi, and we are discussing more kind of modern classics recently. We had a director on our show, Stephen Kostansky, and he directed a movie called The Void, which is kind of an indie Lovecraftian type film. And
I don't know if I've seen that.
yeah, and everything from like It Follows to The Guest, You're Next. These movies are like, it's nice to see a resurgence in this love because there's an element of 80s energy to these movies that we love, and I think that's why they're standing out.
Yeah.
Is because we're getting directors now who who are just fans of filmmaking and fans of cinema.
Right, and you also have you're having producers and people who are willing to invest money now because they know that even though the major studios may not want it, they'll make their money back on streaming and cable and digital and whatever. So they're more willing to ante up money for that than they would have been if it was just a studio film, which, you know, they're looking for tentpole movies, and that's not gonna, you know, most of these movies are not gonna be that.
I do find that Tubi, Tubi, that free app, whatever, they have a fantastic selection of like cult horror movies from back in the day.
Oh wow, really? I'll have to check that out. I have Apple TV, so I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's free, and,
it's a good one.
You don't have to worry about spending $5 on something.
You know, it's another. You know, there's two other good services. I don't know if you have Canopy and Hoopla.
Oh, Hoopla, yeah, I do have Hoopla.
And Canopy is the same thing. If you have a library card, you get a certain number of rentals for free, and they've got some terrific films on both.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Shout out to libraries. Libraries are a great source to go rent movies. So once life opens back up again, go support your local library.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm giving a lot of my digital, my DVDs away to the library because I don't really watch them anymore, and they should have them so some people can have them. Yeah, absolutely. Go to your library and get the movies.
Yeah, that's definitely been one of the things we've missed. My son and I would take our weekly trip to the library and movies and books and whatnot, and we're looking forward to that reopening again someday. So
yeah.
But I was gonna say, speaking of producers being a big piece of that puzzle, you transitioned into producing, right? And working on the Ellen Show, and obviously, like her big coming out episode, you were a co-writer on that, right?
Yeah, and producing is kind of it's in name, because a producer in Hollywood who produces a big film is one thing, but as you become a writer, you start out as a staff writer, and then you go into I don't know what the next step is, but you end up being supervising producer, and then co-executive producer, and then executive producer if you're running the show. And so in that way, yes, by default, you become a producer. And then when Tracy and I did According to Jim, we were the creators, so we were producers in that sense, yeah. But we never were producers in the sense that we would get the money and the distribution rights and all that stuff. No, I've never been that type of producer. I did 84 episodes of According to Jim, and the person that puts the wrapping on the DVD cover makes more money than I do per DVD. So it's writers just it's a good business. We make good money when we make good money, but it's not particularly good as far as residuals and other things like that. We got to fight for everything we get. So that's what the Writers Guild is for. Thank God.
Is According to Jim the favorite show of the shows that you've been a part of? Is that the one you hold nearest to your heart?
No, not at all. I think probably my favorite show I ever did was Bob.
Okay.
It was Bob Newhart. It was the third kind of incarnation of. I think there was Bob. I think it was Newhart and Bob Newhart, and then this was Bob, and it ran. Yeah. He was a cartoonist, and it ran for a year and a half, and it was just, I thought, brilliant and funny, and it was such a fun writer's room. It was my friends Bill and Sherry Steinkellner and Thief Sutton who created it. So we were in the writer's room with all of them. And if you ever get a chance, I think on Amazon they have the DVD of the season and a half. And I'm telling you, it is so worth buying because the shows are so funny. And Bob was one of my heroes. Growing up, I had the button-down line of Bob Newhart and his records, and I would listen to them over and over because I just found him to be so funny because he was so low key and did almost nothing, and it would just make me laugh. So when I got this job, I was so thrilled because before each show, usually a warm-up person will come out and do 15-20 minutes for the audience to get them going and laugh and everything. But instead of the warm-up person, Bob would come out and do stand-up for 15 or 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And I would
That's
just,
so cool.
I would just sit there, and it was just, I was in heaven.
Yeah.
And I also got to play a green in one of the episodes called "Tell Them Willie Mammoth Is Here." I got to play this big green elephant in this huge costume, so that was fun for me too.
It wasn't too hot in there?
It was but it was claustrophobic, and I never knew
Yeah.
I was claustrophobic until that I put that head on. But I think you can even probably you could probably even find it on YouTube if you just type in "Tell Them Willie Mammoth Is Here." You might be able to find part of it.
Bob Newhart he's a national treasure.
He is.
He really is. And yeah, I remember that show fondly.
As do I.
Yeah, Corey and I are both like he said, we're both latchkey kids who some might say spent too much time in front of the television.
So did I.
Maybe
so
not
did I,
enough. You did as well.
Oh yeah.
So you grew up on watching a lot of sitcoms from back in the day.
Sure.
What were some of the sitcoms that you loved when you were a kid?
I loved Lucy. I mean, and not the black and white ones really, but the ones when she was, Lucy. She always had different names. When Gail Gordon was on, and those were, I loved those shows, and of course I loved the Monkees. The Monkees to me was was one of those things I watched, and it was just like, wow, comedy can be different than what I usually see. It has the possibility to be different. And then of course I grew up in Erie, which was right across the lake from Canada, so we get the feed from Kitchener, and that was where I first saw SCTV.
Yeah.
And where I also first saw Monty Python, and those were seminal influences in my life, as most of us that do comedy or write. It is absolutely one of those things where you just first, at least for me, I first realized that comedy could be whatever you wanted it to be. It didn't have to be done by any rules.
No, and those are and those examples you just cited are groundbreaking examples of. That's like the holy grail right there of and no pun intended with Monty Python, but
yeah.
I grew up right across from in Michigan, right across the way over in Detroit, so near Ontario, and I would get the same feed, and watching Monty Python is like a 5-year-old and going, what is this? And
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Canada always was one step ahead of us as far as comedy went, I thought.
I think they're one step ahead of us in many ways.
Many ways.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Certainly now. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So you've, like you said, you're currently working on projects. Anything that you can talk about, or anything you're?
I wrote, I've written so many for so long, kind of, sitcoms, either single camera or, 2 or 3 jokes per page, and everything's kind of tied up in the end. And that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Those are great shows. But as I got older, I really realized I don't want to write that anymore. I want to write stuff that matters to me. So I wrote a thing called a script called Art Imitates Life, which is about a guy who's in his 50s, and his wife is also in his 50s, and he's an actor, and he has to take care of his 86-year-old father, who lives with his 78-year-old stepmother, which is kind of right out of my life, more of my wife's life than mine, but I've written it really, it came right out of my life. And I just realized that it was something that I wanted to get down on paper, and I didn't even know if it was going to be, successful or not, but I wanted to put it down, so I started writing it. And then my manager said, "This is great, we got it," so he's sending it out. And then I also wrote one called, it's called Here After, and it's here, period, after, period. And it's a story about this guy who is an incredible asshole, and he's supposed to take a plane to go to, he's head of a CEO. He's supposed to take a plane to New York, and he gets there too late, and the door's closed, and he tries to talk this gate agent to letting him in. She doesn't, and the plane takes off. On the runway, it explodes, fireball, everybody's killed.
Oh, wow.
He finds that the gate agent is a person who's there to help him change his life. So he has to,
Oh,
but the deal is he has to go back and apologize to every single person he's wronged. So, but there's a whole group of people who want to stop that because they want his soul for them. So basically, there's a lot of action in it. There's a lot of these people trying to get them being able to get away from them. Anyway, it's a little bit of a departure for me, but I really like it. And again, my manager seems to love it. So, it's going out there. I have a meeting with Seth MacFarlane's people next week, so we'll see. I mean, it's all I just write. I don't plan on ever working again. I just write like I want to. I'm not trying to write. The thing they always say is you should write what you want because the networks, studios, streaming, they don't know what they want. So
yeah.
you have to give them something, and if you just have to write what you want to write, and hopefully it'll jive with what they want at some point down the line.
That attitude is, I think we need more of that attitude being heard
Yeah,
by people
yeah,
because there is such a fear base in general
yeah,
around not doing what you feel like you have to do versus what you want to do.
right.
Um, Corey and I can both sit here and say, thankfully we can sit here and say that is working for us. And it doesn't work with everybody. I totally get that. I understand. But this idea of breaking through that fear of like, especially being a writer, coming up with ideas and having it go, you know, fall on deaf ears, and then, okay, well, what can I do to make them happy kind of thing.
Right.
And once you're able to let go of that, how were you able to let go of that and just say, no, I'm going to do what I want to do?
Well, I was lucky enough, according to Jim, like I said, did 180 some episodes and became syndicated. So it was kind of, I suppose I could have retired on that, but I didn't want to. You know,
Yeah.
I really still like writing. I wasn't writing to retire. I was, writing to pay for my kids' college and everything else, but I was writing because I actually liked it. So why would I retire from something that I'm enjoying?
Right.
And every day I kind of wake up and go, is this the day I'm going to not like it anymore? But I still do, so I keep doing it.
Well, can I ask a question about your sort of day-to-day writing habits? Do you
Yeah,
write every day at a certain time, or do you write when you feel like it, or do you have a schedule for yourself?
I write when I feel like it. I try and do it in the morning because I'm fresher. And then when Tracy and I wrote for 15 years together, we always wrote from 8 in the morning till noon. That was it. I'd go to her house, we write till 8 in the morning till noon. But I don't necessarily do that. Sometimes I go to the gym in the morning, sometimes I go in the afternoon, whatever. But I always sit down and try and write 3 pages about something. It doesn't even have to be the script I'm working on. Uh, there's a book out called The Artist's Way,
Hmm.
and the advice in that is to sit down every morning. They say as soon as you wake up or as you're having your coffee and write 3 pages on anything you want. It doesn't have to be anything important. You don't have to keep them, but that the most creative time in your head is right when you wake up from sleep.
Hmm.
So I haven't I don't really do that, but I still try and write 3 pages a day. And some of the stuff I look at and I go, well, this isn't going nowhere. But then some of it kind of spurs me on to, in fact, both scripts I told you about, I started out with one scene that I had just written on and I didn't have an outline. Then I wrote another scene until I had 5 or 40 pages. So
Did you write
I
them
don't
like
do
in
outlines.
did you write them like in succession, like day after day? Were you feeling like a bit of inspiration in that moment for it, or did
Um,
those few scenes come
Sometimes,
over time?
yeah. So, I mean, I would write. Sometimes I'd have one scene the next day, and then I think I got to about page 25, and I got stuck. So I got, well, I got to keep writing this, and then I didn't look at it for 3 months. And when I came back to it, I knew exactly what I had to do because I think as a writer, retrospect is a very important thing to be able to come back to something when you've when you put it out of your head, because you come
Yeah.
back to it and you either say, well, this is just not going to work, or you go, okay, I think I understand what to do now. Because the creative process is a weird thing. It doesn't happen when you want it to happen. It happens when it wants to happen. So you can't sit there and make it happen. You just have to kind of be open and be ready for it to happen. And like I said, it wasn't happening for me for this particular script for 3 months, and then one day it just hit.
Yeah, I grew up with like a fine art background, magnet art programs in high school and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's same. It's, I guess, the creative process is kind of the same for whatever medium you're working in. But yeah, you get stuck on something, or you're just staring at like a white page, and you're like, what am I doing here? But you start working on something, and you put it down. You might come back to it a couple months later, or a few days, or whatever, and you see it in a whole new light, and thus you're actually almost inspired by your own inspiration, to kind of move forward with it.
Yeah. Well, I'm here to tell you that I was a C or D student in a public school, and it's still the creative process is the same for all of us, no matter no matter what we do. So it's just you got to be able to tap into it, and even people who don't think they're creative have just as much creative juice as any of us. It's just that you gotta be open to it. Same with acting, same with acting, and same with improv.
Well, I want to say thank you for being open to being on our show, first of all.
Oh, happy to. Happy to. Yeah.
It's really, honestly, it's really a pleasure having you on. And of course, we wanted to talk about Fright Night and House 2 and those specific films, but I'm just blown away and really honored that you have taken the time to give us so much insight. Thank you.
Oh, I'm happy to do it. I'm glad you guys asked me, and honored as well. And I hope to see you at the convention soon.
Well,
whenever,
you can guarantee that Corey and I will be doing Podcasting After Dark type screenings. So, and like I said, Billy Cole will be, Jonathan Stark will be the top billed guest for that.
I would love to. I mean, I'm happy to come in, especially if people were interested in hearing anything about the movie. I always assume that people are kind of not that interested, but then when I talk to guys like you and other people, I go, wow, yeah, I guess there's something to it.
Maybe we'll do a House 2 screening with Ari Gross.
That would be interesting. Ari would love to do that. We were talking about that when I saw him. He said, "Oh, I'd love to do that."
Oh, cool. Well,
yeah.
Noted.
Yeah. Okay.
I was just gonna tag on to the Fright Night discussion as somebody who's rediscovered it when I'm older. I watched it when I was a kid, but man, I mean, it still holds up, and that's what's awesome about it. And it's still like a great movie, even in 2020. Like it's a fun movie, and it's the energy that everyone brings to the table. But I gotta personally say, it's Billy Cole for me.
Oh, that's so nice of you. It's funny, at the conventions, people come up to me, not just they say they've seen it 50 times, but they bring their kids who they are showing it to. So Fright Night, I'm sure, will be one of those movies that is around a long time. Well, after I'm gone, anyway.
I told my son who's 6, because he said, when am I going to be able to watch Fright Night? I said, you'll probably watch House 2 first before you watch Fright Night.
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
in a little while.
Well, what do we have here? Vampire killers?
When we're not virus in times, I usually get together with Tom and have at a local pastry placer and have coffee, and we talk for a while. He's such a great guy, and I'll always owe him so much for casting me in that film, a guy that had really never worked before. So
it's also nice. It's also nice that he is such like a fan of filmmaking.
Yeah,
and
he really is.
It's really exciting and inspiring to talk to him, to talk to you, to talk to Steven, to talk to people that love the process. And
the genre.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and the genre.
Yeah, my pleasure. And if you talk to Steven, please tell him I said hi.
I will actually. I'm supposed to call him later this week, so I will definitely do that.
All right.
Jonathan, thank you so much for being on the show. And we won't say goodbye. We'll say see you next time for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Take care, guys.
Thank you for listening to Podcasting After Dark's exclusive interview series with Jonathan Stark. And, as always, thank you for your support.
Imagine being one of the last people on Earth, being trapped alone with something not human, something always watching, something always waiting. What would you do? Where would you run? Where would you hide if you were haunted for 7 winters alone?
Podcasting After Dark presents 7 Winters Alone, a dystopian haunted house story by David Irons.
Available now in paperback and ebook.